Second component of step number 1 is clarify what stage we are in. That means, is this the beginning of a ranging market? Is this the end of a... Now, step number 5 is a psychological tool, and it was a game changer for me back then. So I can imagine that if you apply this one correctly, it can be very, very... Hello everybody, welcome back to Day Trading School with me, Amy. In this lesson I'm going to talk about 5 steps you might want to take into consideration before taking an actual trade, before clicking on buying and selling. So what to think, so the lesson is about what to think before you take an actual trade. Day trading can get really stressful. I'm fully aware of it, and that's the reason why I want to give you some sort of tools that you can bear in mind before you take your next trade. Make sure you let me know in the comment section down below whether this video was useful for you and what aspects you were actually able to apply, because be aware, depending on your trading strategy, some aspects might be useful and some are just there to be ignored, really, right? So, and yeah, if you think my channel is useful and my channel provides, additional value for day traders, for traders out there, make sure you subscribe to my channel and you support my work. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked my explanation, if you want to see more similar videos to be uploaded, etc. And yeah, so let's get started with today's program. Now, the very first step I usually take is I clarify the overall market structure. That means I clarify whether we are stuck in a trending market or in a ranging market. And I do this on the monthly level and weekly level. Why? Because I do want to get the idea, the logic of the overall situation, right? I do want to understand the logic behind these candlesticks, because the candlestick patterns, they just express an idea, a certain idea, right? So that means I first of all have to clarify what the bigger picture is. This is what I first of all do. Now, step number 1 actually includes the question. As I said, you clarify the market structure, but then the second component of step number 1 is clarify what stage we are in. That means, is this the beginning of a ranging market? Is this the end of a downtrend? Is this the beginning of an uptrend? That means, first of all, clarify what stage we are in, and then that you can basically move on to step number 2. The second step, and I still focus on the higher time frames, that means monthly, weekly, daily. You might want to clarify the overall situation on the monthly, weekly, daily level before you continue on with the lower time frames. That means here what I do is I usually look for, developing price or candlestick patterns. Now, the difference between price patterns and candlestick patterns is candlestick patterns are usually formed with 2 to 3 candlesticks, and price patterns usually involve 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 candlesticks. And that's the reason why price patterns are very reliable, because they usually provide the idea of the overall situation. It's like, giving you the bigger picture, and that makes it very useful. Then let me give you a couple of examples for the second step. Here I can see a bullish harami. A bullish harami after this candlestick right here, after, this candlestick marks the end of the downtrend, and the bullish harami is only reliable if it gets confirmed. Otherwise, the price could have gone down again, forming a second bottom or something like that. But here, the bullish harami got confirmed and price went up. And what I also do is, I look for, as I told you, I look for developing candlestick patterns, price patterns. But what I also do is I mark those important areas of resistance and support. Now, people sometimes ask, I'd say, a bit of a silly question. They say, well, what should I do? How many support and resistance zones are there? Well, you have to ask yourself, which ones do really make sense? For example, this one makes sense as well. You can't, just because you see that there are an accumulation of shadows, that doesn't mean that you can just draw lines everywhere, right? It doesn't work like that. You can't just draw lines everywhere claiming that each one is basically a support or resistance line. It doesn't work like this. Now, as you can see here, this seems to be an important zone and a convincing resistance level. Now, you might be wondering why this is the case, not only because there is an accumulation of highs, but also because there was a lot going on between buyers and sellers. This could have been the end of a clear downtrend, but the opposite was the case and price just went down. You understand? So here we had a lot of fighting, a lot of struggle. So this one seems to be a convincing resistance line. This one as well, because this candlestick introduced the end of the downtrend and said, all right, we're now moving up, right? So this marks somewhat the end of a major trend. So that's the reason why this line is also a reliable one. Now, you can do this with the monthly level, with the weekly level, with the daily level. That means take note of the areas of support and resistance, but don't draw lines everywhere. Just draw where you think it might make sense, because there was something quite important. There was a struggle between buyers and sellers, or maybe it was a psychological level, right? This could also be a very good reason. And then you move on to the third step. Now, step number 3 has something to do with money management. Calculate your position size, know how much money you can lose, and understand where to set your stop loss. And make sure that it is basically based on a clear idea. If you don't have a clear idea, if you don't know where to set your stop loss, don't trade. This is at least my recommendation for you. Don't do it. Step number 4 has something to do with self-management. That means don't only organize when you're entering a certain trade and when you are closing it, but also what are you going to do in between? That's a very important question. Are you sitting there and staring at your screen, which I would not recommend to you, or are you cleaning the house, reading a book? When you sit there and stare at your screen, the problem is every time you see a candlestick on an hourly level or 15 minutes level or whatever, every time you see a candlestick on a lower time frame, you just think, oh, should I rather close my position? Now, but be aware, this depends a bit on your trading style, right? If you are into scalping, I think there it is quite important that you monitor the lower time frame. So this one depends a bit on your trading strategy. But if you are someone who, if you're a traditional intraday trader, in this case, you might not want to sit there for hours and hours and stare at your screen and get nervous every time you see a candlestick pattern, right? So yeah, depends a bit on your trading. Now, step number 5 is a psychological tool, and it was a game changer for me back then. So I can imagine that if you apply this one correctly, it can be very, very, very useful for you as well. Before I take a trade, I always ask myself, if I had one single shot, would I pull the trigger now? Every day, this is the question I ask myself. And if the answer is no, I basically don't take that particular trade. This question, this psychological question, helps you, to be more patient and to be able to wait for the reliable patterns, for the reliable candlestick patterns, for the reliable price patterns, etc., and not to react every time you see a particular trigger, right? It makes you more patient, actually. This is very, very important when it comes to day trading, not reacting to, any sort of signal you have spotted. So it is a very useful tool to solve the problem of waiting, because this can be very difficult, isn't it? We all struggle with that. Or I can imagine that there are a lot of day traders out there who have problems with waiting for the right signal, etc. So this psychological question, if I had one shot only, would I pull the trigger now, can be quite useful. Alright, so this is it for today. My next video is going to be about how to trade breakouts and how to see and understand the difference between real breakouts and fake outs. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thank you very much indeed for your support. So see you.